Almost everything in your home crossed this one narrow spot on the map. All of it, and that shortcut only exists because one stubborn doctor beat an enemy that nobody could even see. For 400 years, people stared at a thin strip of land in Panama and dreamed the same dream. Cut through it, join two oceans, because without a shortcut, a ship leaving New York for California had to sail all the way around South America. 13,000 miles of some of the deadliest water on Earth. The prize was enormous. So was the price. The first man to really try was a French superstar named Ferdinand de Lesseps. He had just built the Suez Canal, slicing Egypt in two, and the whole world called him a genius. In 1881, he arrived in Panama certain he would do it again. He was wrong. Egypt was flat, dry sand. Panama was a mountain, a river, and a jungle that wanted him dead. The rain came down in sheets. The dirt turned to soup and slid straight back into every hole they dug. And the men started dying. First a few, then dozens a week. Fevers that turned skin yellow and eyes hollow. The workers had a nickname for the place, a graveyard with a railroad running through it. Here is the part that still gets me. The hospitals were spotless. To keep crawling ants off the sick, the nurses stood every bed leg in a little bowl of water. Clean, careful, and perfect, because in that still water, mosquitoes laid their eggs right beside the weakest patients in the country. The place built to save them was breeding the very thing that killed them. Nobody made the connection. They blamed bad air. They blamed the swamp. They blamed the workers. Over 20,000 people died. The money ran out. The company collapsed in scandal and France walked away. The jungle had won. And for 15 years, the half-dug canal just sat there, filling with mud and rust. When the Americans took over in 1904, the first person they sent was not an engineer. It was a doctor. His name was William Gorgas, and he believed something almost nobody took seriously, that the real enemy was never the mud or the heat. It was a mosquito, one tiny insect carrying yellow fever and malaria from the dying to the healthy. The deadliest thing in Panama weighed less than a raindrop, so Gorgas declared war on an insect. His men drained swamps, poured oil on standing water to smother the eggs, screened every window and fumigated whole towns. People thought he had lost his mind, spending a fortune to chase bugs. Then the death rate collapsed. Yellow fever gone. The invisible killer that beat the French for 20 years was finally beaten, and only now could the real digging begin. The Americans faced the same trap that broke the French. Everyone assumed you had to carve a channel straight down to sea level, cutting clean through the mountain. But a railroad engineer named John Stevens looked at that plan and said, "Don't fight the water. Use it." His idea sounded backwards. Instead of digging down to the ocean, he would lift the ships up over the land. So they dammed a wild river and flooded an entire valley, creating a giant lake high above the sea. Ships would not tunnel through Panama. They would float across it on a lake that had not existed a few years before. It was a strange, beautiful idea. But between the ships and that lake stood the hardest 9 miles on Earth. They called it the Culebra Cut, a canyon they had to carve straight through the spine of the mountains. This time, the Americans did not send a few hundred men. They sent an army, tens of thousands of workers, many of them from the islands of the Caribbean, doing the most dangerous job on the planet. Giant steam shovels tore into the rock while trains hauled it away, day and night. And still, the walls kept sliding back in on them, and the scale is almost impossible to picture. To open that one cut, they hauled away more than 200 million cubic yards of rock and earth. Load all of it into rail cars, and the train would wrap around the whole planet several times over. They did not just dig through the mountain. They took it apart and carried it away, one train load at a time. The locks are where it gets almost unbelievable. To lift a ship the height of an 8-story building, you would expect enormous pumps and roaring machines. There are none. Every drop of water that raises those ships is pulled from the lake above by nothing but gravity, and the steel gates holding back the ocean. Some weigh hundreds of tons, yet they are balanced so perfectly that a small motor swings them open like a garden gate. Simple, silent, and it has worked for over 100 years. On the 15th of August, 1914, a ship crossed from one ocean to the other in a single afternoon, a trip that used to take months. 25,000 people had died to make that afternoon possible. But here is what they got wrong for all those years. The greatest thing ever built here was not moving the mountain. It was finally seeing the enemy that nobody could see. They did not beat the jungle with bigger machines. They beat it by understanding it. And that lake, those gates, that gravity, they are all still working right now, floating billions of dollars of cargo over a mountain every single day. So next time something lands on your doorstep cheap and right on time, there is a good chance it rode across a 100-year-old lake to get to you, which makes you wonder what other impossible thing we walk right past and never see at all.